A very good evening and welcome. This is Newsfirst Primetime News on MTV and Shakti TV. I'm Ramesh Irugal Bandara.
And I'm Jitendra Gunasena. Now let's take a look at your headlines.
More than 700 Hajj pilgrims killed in a stampede in the holy city of Mecca. Minister Patli says that the Attorney General's instructions on the avant-garde case are not credible.
නීතිපති කියනවා අල්ලස් දූෂණයක් විතරයි උනේ කියලා. කියනවලු. අපි ඒක විශ්වාස කරන්නේ නැහැ.
MP Buddhika Patharan appears before the CID on a revelation made and questioned for nearly 3 hours. Chief suspect of the rape and murder of Seya to be detained and interrogated.
ළමයි ගැන මීට වඩා සැලකිලිමත් බලන්න කියලා මටත් ළමයා ගැන බලන්න බැරි වුණේ හින්දානේ මේක උනේ කියන මගේ හිතේ හැමදාම තැවෙනවා.
President Maithripala Sirisena arrived in New York this morning to attend the 70th sessions of the United Nations General Assembly.
The president was welcomed by a group including Foreign Minister Mangala Samaraveera and the Sri Lankan ambassadors in Washington DC and New York. President Maithripala Sirisena and his delegation is set to take part in the opening ceremony of the 70th session of the United Nations General Assembly tomorrow. On the sidelines of the UNGA, the president will also engage in a number of bilateral discussions. President Sirisena is also scheduled to hold a special meeting with the president of South Africa, Jacob Zuma.
The opening ceremony of the 70th sessions of the United Nations General Assembly is set to commence tomorrow, the 25th at 9:45 a.m. His Holiness Pope Francis is also set to address the inaugural sessions of the UNGA. Secretary General of the United Nations and the President of the UNGA will address tomorrow's sessions along with the head of the state of the host nation. Secretary has been beefed up ahead of tomorrow's event here in New York. The President of Sri Lanka will address the UNGA on the 30th of this month.
Pilgrims and devotees of the Islamic faith celebrate the Hajj festival today. During the pilgrimage to the holy city of Mecca, Muslims declare their unity and purity before the holy Kaaba.
The holy city of Mecca is considered one of the world's most prominent religious sites that receives the largest gathering of pilgrims. Muslims from all over the world gather in the holy city in Saudi Arabia to celebrate the festival. The Hajj festival is the fifth and the last pillar of Islam. The Holy Quran states that every Muslim should attend the pilgrimage of Hajj to Mecca at least once in their lifetime. The followers of the Islam faith gives prominence to their religious observances. Meanwhile, religious observances were held today at the Golfers Green in line with the Hajj festival.
Now, Saudi authorities said at least 770 pilgrims were killed today in a stampede at Mina, outside the Muslim holy city of Mecca, where some 2 million people are performing the annual Hajj pilgrimage. The Directorate added that more than 863 other pilgrims were injured in the stampede.
The Saudi Civil Defense said the stampede occurred when two large groups of pilgrims arrived together at a crossroad on Street 204 at the camp city at Mina, a few kilometers east of Mecca. According to a civil defense spokesman, the injured have been evacuated to 4 different hospitals in the Mina region. Mina is where pilgrims carry out a symbolic stoning of the devil by throwing pebbles against 3 stone walls. It also houses more than 160,000 tents where pilgrims spend the night during the pilgrimage. The government has spent billions of dollars upgrading and expanding Hajj infrastructure and crowd control technology in recent years. Survivors assess the scene by standing on the top of the roadside stalls as rescue workers in orange and yellow vests comb the area. A civil defense spokesman said about 4,000 people from the rescue services were participating in the operation to help the injured, and about 220 ambulances were directed to the scene. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs stated that there were no Sri Lankan casualties reported.
Police say that the suspect arrested in connection with the murder of Seya Saddeumi would be will be held under detention orders for 72 hours and questioned. A citing police media spokesperson SSP Priyantha Jayakodi said that based on information revealed by the suspect, there was reasonable doubt to believe that he could be named as the chief suspect of the case.
This suspect was apprehended by a special investigations team while he was in hiding in Baduwadogoda area in Belmulla, Gampaha. A woman had tipped off the police that the suspect had used this location on Tuesday night.
I went to throw the garbage in the morning. There was a bed sheet here. When I told my uncle about it and he investigated a bit, he found a phone and a cap. We informed the police that there were some suspicious items placed here and asked them to look into the matter. They told us not to touch anything. They arrived at the location subsequently.
When the police had moved to arrest the suspect, he had attempted to hide near a cemetery located near a paddy field. The 30-year-old suspect is said to have an abnormal behavior.
He's in the forest. He's there out of fear. He comes home to eat. He hides in the forest not because he is guilty, but because he has some cases against him.
After a lengthy interrogation of the suspect, the police have been able to uncover some important facts regarding the child's murder. Based on these facts, the police are taking steps to name this person as the chief suspect of the case. A special investigations team from the CID have started extensive investigations based on the facts revealed during the interrogation. The suspect's brother too was questioned with regard to the murder.
The suspect, who had fled the Bemmulla area in the recent past, had taken refuge at his sister's residence in the Ingammaro area in Kotadenyava. The distance between the house of the suspect's sister and the house of Seya Sadeumi is less than a kilometer. Police note that the suspect is likely to have passed Seya's residence on a number of occasions. Police suspect that the individual arrested was hiding in the Baduwadogoda area after committing the crime. A student from Kotadenyava and another individual were also arrested in connection with the murder of Seya Sadeumi.
I told them that my son was not involved in this murder. However, the police did not hear my plea. Our lives have been destroyed by this. How can he go and face the school? We need some kind of compensation.
The Kotadenyava police carried out investigations into this murder, arrested 2 individuals and produced them in courts. Those 2 individuals were arrested based on their contradictory statements given regarding their behavior on the night of the crime, pornographic video content that was on the laptop of one of the suspects, as well as the picture of the child being on the laptop. They were produced in court and later produced before the judicial medical officer and were subjected to medical examination so that samples could be taken for DNA testing. DNA testing is being carried out at present. After the medical records are presented to court, we believe the courts will take the necessary legal steps with regard to those 2 suspects.
With this new development, a large number of villagers had gathered near the house of Seya Sadeumi this morning after the word spread that the suspect is likely to be brought to Seya Sadeumi's residence. Our correspondents reported that even though the police requested the villagers to disperse, the crowds remained defying police orders.
The investigations have not been completed 100%. What I am going through now is the same emotions you would have to endure if such an act befell your child. I'm just an ordinary father. I do not want the suspects to be just produced before courts and then released on bail. I want them to be punished to such an extent that they will never look at a child again.
We request that justice be meted out to the murderer. Please look after your children. I lament every day that this incident took place because I was not protective of my daughter.
The primetime news bulletin on our sister channel Sirius TV at 10 p.m. last night telecast footage of a police officer assaulting a disabled individual in the Kahatadagastigiriya town. Newsfirst delved deep into this story.
These visuals were telecast on our sister channel Sirius TV last night. The assaulted individual was identified as J. Karunaratne, a resident of the Batkava village in Kartagasdigilia. Karunaratne, who was attached to the Sri Lanka Army's Signal Corps, was left disabled after he became victim to a bomb blast. Karunaratne's pension as a soldier feeds his 4 children and his sick wife.
He blew a whistle near the clock tower. I stopped. He assaulted me, saying that I am under the influence of alcohol. Then I told him that I too wore a uniform, that I wore the army uniform and not to assault me. He assaulted me while I was laying on the ground. Thereafter he brought me to the police station in handcuffs and then beat me even there. His superior also assaulted me.
He was kept to the police cell similar to a dog. His sarong was torn.
In the morning, the head of the police station visited our house and took me to the police station in the jeep, stating that there is another high-ranking officer in the police. He gave me a letter and asked me to sign it. I signed it then. He said to take the case off. He called me son and even stroked my head. He had tried to prevent the police from arresting him by removing his prosthetic leg that he was wearing. The police had arrested him by using the minimum force. It was evident that the suspect was under the influence of alcohol. Subsequent to the medical examination, police has filed charges against him for riding under the influence of alcohol, riding without the use of a helmet, riding without the possession of license and ignoring police orders. Police will take legal action over these allegations. It has been reported that the police had used the minimum force and an investigation is being carried out under the supervision of an ASP to see whether the police had acted within the legal framework. The minimum force can only be used to arrest an individual who does not heed police orders to stop. However, in this case, the assault takes place following the arrest. Is this the use of minimum force? We know that there's a special act for the protection of the disabled. Therefore, the society needs to be more sensitive towards such a person. Police has the right to arrest someone who is violating the law. There is no question about that. However, police officials need to be more considerate about producing a suspect to courts as soon as he is arrested.
The Criminal Investigations Department recorded a statement from United National Party parliamentarian Buddhika Pathirana for nearly 3 hours today. According to the parliamentarian, the statement was recorded in connection with a statement he had made over a suspicious transaction said to have taken place at the Sri Lanka Army.
MP Buddhika Pathirana made a public statement recently over an irregular transaction said to have taken place when supplying food to the Sri Lanka Army. The Criminal Investigations Department had begun investigations into the statement following a complaint lodged by the Army commander on how confidential information of the Army had been made public. ASP Sagara Kirtipala and IP Induku De Silva had obtained the statement from parliamentarian Buddhika Pathirana.
In the first 15 minutes, I realized why there was no evidence in relation to the avant-garde and KP cases. We direct allegations against a Major General and a Major of the Army over an irregularity said to have taken place in the supply of food to the Army. The Army Commander is sending the Major who is accused of carrying out this irregularity as his representative for the hearing of this case. It is mentioned here that the Major has been deployed on the instructions of the other Major General who is also a suspect in this case. Even though the President is not in the country, I would like to urge the President, the Prime Minister and the Commander of the Army to transfer the Director of the Supply Unit of the Army Major General AKP Vikramasinghe and Major Rasika Panditharatne, who are named as prime suspects in this case, and conduct investigations. I have a reasonable doubt that the documentation pertaining to this irregularity will disappear or be altered.
In more local news tonight, Minister Patali Champiga Ranawaka was questioned by journalists today regarding the avant-garde court case during a media briefing that was held in Colombo.
Did or did not a crime take place when firearms were utilized by avant-garde? Her belief is that a crime did take place. Secondly, did an act of bribery and corruption take place when the Minister of Defence decided to provide avant-garde a monopoly in this business, removing competitors from entering the market? We believe that this development was also evident. The Attorney General is of the view that an act of bribery and corruption took place. We strongly disagree. We will take special action in this regard.
ඒ සඳහා දැන් විශේෂ ක්‍රියාදාමයක් ඉදිරියේදී අනුගමනය කෙරෙනවා.
Now there were 3,500 firearms at the BMICH and at Gaul. Now can you or can I store firearms similar to this? I would like to tell you clearly that all these transactions were carried out under the guise of Rakna Arakshak Lanka. Very serious charges have been levelled against these transactions, and that firearms were sold to foreign criminals, as well as these foreign criminals were brought to Sri Lanka and trained here. In a country where you or I cannot wield a knife and move freely, how can someone store 3,500 automatic firearms within its borders? None of this was done by Rakna Arakshak Lanka. It was all done by avant-garde.
The 125th anniversary of Hindu College, Jaffna, was celebrated today under the auspices of Education Minister Akhil Viraj Karyavasam.
Hindu College, Jaffna, is considered to be one of the most prominent schools in the country. Established in 1886, Jaffna Hindu College was the alma mater to experts in many fields in the country and in the world over. Under the leadership of 21 principals, Hindu College Jaffna, which moved forward with the aim of creating an educated, moralistic younger generation with a proper Hindu culture, has won a name in the world. Past pupils from Great Britain, USA, Netherlands, Canada, Australia and Germany attended the 125th anniversary celebrations of the school. Senior journalist and Jaffna Hindu College 125th anniversary celebration committee organizer Jeshi Ranga also attended the event.
There are Chief Justices who received their education from this school. Present Chief Justice Sri Pavan is also a produce of this school. Additional Secretary to the President and many others whose names I may not mention have reached great heights in the country had received their education from this school.
I say the sincere thanks on behalf of the University of Society to the excellent staff from Postal Department who are involved in the first.
The next story we have for you tonight is about the widely popular selfie mania.
Selfies. We all have snapped one at some point in our life. But what if one of those selfies turns out to be our last?
Photographers have tried to master the art of taking selfies for many years now, but with the development of modern technologies such as mobile phones, capturing and sharing photographs through social websites has become a breeze and a popular pastime among both young and old. Today, people are motivated to capture their joyous as well as sorrowful moments by snapping a selfie. However, Mashable reports that the number of deaths due to selfie-related accidents in 2015 stands at 12 and surprisingly is more than the number of humans killed in shark attacks. The latest selfie-related death, which has got the whole world talking, was reported from one of the 7 wonders of the world, and it is none other than the Taj Mahal in India. A 66-year-old Japanese tourist who attempted to snap a selfie met his death as he fell off a staircase. In Sri Lanka, the latest selfie-related accident took place in July. A 19-year-old student sustained injuries when he was hit by the Kandy Mathura Express train in the Nupe area in Mathura when he attempted to snap a selfie. Let's now take a look at some selfie-related accidents from around the world.
Some people take unnecessary risks in taking what they consider to be thrilling selfies on fast-moving vehicles, on top of trains, or on a cliff edge or very close to fierce animals in a national park or at a zoo, and with firearms and with heavy machinery and equipment. Various situations which are extraordinary, which are uncommon, that somehow signify that the taker is leading an exciting life. Well, the danger, the downside is sometimes things go wrong, horribly, horribly wrong. We've seen it. Increasingly, we've seen reports of people injuring themselves, people meeting sudden deaths because they were not careful enough or things went wrong when taking selfies. So these are common sense pieces of advice. But the problem is, common sense is not so common. And that's why we are having this spate of selfie deaths and injuries. Now, this is something that we need to be aware of, and it needs everyone's alertness to prevent needless preventable injury and death.
Former Foreign Secretary Berna Gunathilaka was the guest on Newsline ad on MTV this morning. Let's take a look at some excerpts from the interview.
You still said that there is, in Geneva there's so much, it's politics, not more than human rights. But so what will happen to Sri Lanka? People are waiting, do you think that we will walk into a trap? Because I think there is euphoria, we are elated, okay, governments have changed, things will be fine, that's the feeling among the masses. What do you think?
Yeah, that is how we look at it from Sri Lanka, that there has been a change, administration has changed, therefore the world opinion about Sri Lanka would change. That is an expectation on the part of Sri Lankans. But when you see how the handlers handle the situation in Geneva, it is a totally different situation.
Who are the handlers, if you tell our viewers?
Well,
who are the
basically,
handlers?
in this particular instance, I can't say, but it is the Western countries. My experience in the 1980s and 1990s was that each or a particular country will be given the responsibility of handling Sri Lanka, handling Vietnam, or handling some other country. And that particular country will draft the initial draft with the assistance of several other countries and come up and present it to their own group, and they keep on loading the draft resolution, and eventually they will submit it. But there will be negotiations, so there will have to be negotiations. If not, the country concerned can say, okay, we will go for a vote. Let us see what the rest of the 47-member Human Rights Council has to say about it. So there is an option to go for a vote. If that is not the road to go, then it is possible to come to a compromise, discuss, negotiate, remove the unnecessary paragraphs, remove the offensive references to the country, and come to an understanding.
The Command Strike joint military exercises concluded successfully yesterday. A Newsfirst team was able to be a part of this operation. Chaturanga Hapurarshi filed this report for us.
The Command Strike, the final attack of the joint military exercise, was carried out by Commando and Special Forces personnel in the Punnukuda beach in Batiklo. There was an exchange of fire between the red and blue teams. When the commando soldiers entered the camp amidst heavy firing by the enemies, soldiers from the Sri Lanka Navy arrived in speedboats to assist the ground troops. 4 gunships were also positioned near the coast for added security for the speedboats and the ground troops. The blue team soldiers infiltrated the red camp and were able to take full control. Airstrikes were carried out by the Sri Lanka Air Force, Kafir fighter jets and MiG fighter jets on the red camp after the blue team soldiers exfiltrated themselves from the premises. Airstrikes were carried out by the Sri Lanka Air Force, Kafir fighter jets and MiG fighter jets on the red camp after the blue team soldiers exfiltrated themselves from the premise.
My team and I, together with all the other officers, planned the attack on the enemy camp throughout the night. I can say that they were able to carry out the assault successfully.
විශේෂ පුහුණුවලත්
This exercise is carried out by the specially trained soldiers of the special forces to test their capabilities and develop their skills. Foreign military personnel also take part in a bid to develop their skills mutually.
America, Australia, Brazil, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh, Maldives and Nepal took part in the exercise as observers.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This exercise, I was an observer, so I will take back some of the lessons that I saw today and talk about the professionalism of the Sri Lankan Special Forces.
And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight. For the News First team, I'm Ramesh Irugal Bandara.
And I'm Jitendra Gunasena. Good night.